Wow, that was actually
Nice.
super in sync, I feel like. So
I
it's
know.
Chad's fault. It's all
It
Chad's
felt good.
fault.
It's always Chad's fault. It's the countdown that he does.
I think the problem is, unlike, when you're missing out on an episode, Chad will actually listen to this. So
Hey, I listened to the Kerrigan episode. I got that one under my belt.
all right, cool. Yeah, thank you, Jason.
But I listened to it for Kerrigan, not for you and Chad.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's why. That's why those episodes, when there's a guest, have so many more viewers, because people actually are there for the guests, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
No one cares what you think, Jason.
Exactly. I've gotten used to that.
Except
over
for
the
you
years.
guys listening right now. We appreciate it.
It's been my job over the years to just get comfortable with the fact that nobody wants to hear me talk. Yeah, obviously, as you've all noticed by now, Chad is absent. Chad is feeling a little ill these days, and he's got to travel to Brazil pretty soon. So he's going to
He's
rest
got
up.
the shits.
He's got the
He's
runs.
shitting his pants.
And it's at this moment he's really glad he tuned into this episode.
And G2 is not helping him. They're not helping things at all.
Bro, that was rough. I watched that this morning. I woke up a little early, all jet lagged and shit. And well, now they got to face off against iNation. So I mean, that's
Great.
Cool.
We just got a Serbian team to the event. Let's play against the guys that were there before.
I know.
At least,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to, be more optimistic these days, Jason. You have a more positive outlook on life and on things. So I'm looking at it from this way. At least, there's no way both of them can be 0-2, right?
Yeah.
So at least
That's
either G2 will get a bounce back win, be 1-1, feel a little bit better about themselves after that close game against Nine, and iNation, if they lose, well, it'd be 0-2, but they lost to G2 and Big, two pretty good teams. You'll get someone easier, quote unquote. Although for them, there's no easy opponents. They're the lowest rated team in the group,
and it's Group B as well.
I'm not
There's no easy teams
I'm
in
not
the whole
unrealistic here. There's 95% chance or higher that they're not making it out of this group. But if they can maybe play off of the pressure of G2, tie the score there. I don't know how this bullshit system works, if that's going to help them later on or not. But, just like a good feel-good win, and they're in the 1-1 bracket, and maybe, who knows who they play. They get one game up. Crazier things have happened in the RMRs. So we'll just wait and
Crazier
see.
things have happened. Surely not 2 RMRs in a row that G2 fails, though.
That would be wild. I mean, it's that. All things considered, they've been playing better. Like, they feel like a different team. But I watched that game, man. It's just it's like 13-12 or whatever, 13-11. I don't know. And then they lose 2 gun rounds in a row as CT, where they don't get a single kill, and that's what fucks them. Or they get 1 kill. I don't know, right? Because they win 2 rounds in a row after that, and Nine still has money to buy. Like, that shouldn't be the case, right? But that's the thing. It's like 2 entries from Kylar, 2 rounds in a row. Like, one, he catches JKS off guard and ramp. Next one, he goes down Wednesday, don't know. He kills Nico in the back in the secret stairs, right? So it's stuff like that where it's at some point, it's the same. There's no excuses for G2, right? They just need to find a way to win some of these games, and that's it.
Yeah, especially as like the favorite on CT side, Duke. I feel like that's a closeout scenario. That's like one of those, even if it's close, that's like one of those situations where you should be able to clamp down.
And they had decent economy and everything, right? But still couldn't get it done. But before we get into the results of the RMRs, I think we have to talk about fucking what the fuck's going on with the RMRs. Which is like, I mean, the plethora of issues at all of them pretty much, but the least amount at the European one. And for those unaware, the reason for that as well is Blast has outsourced the production of the Asia and America's RMRs to different companies. So it's not Blast people out there and Blast production running it. Yes, it's the Blast brand and all of that stuff, the graphics, all the assets, but it's not their people. They hired a company to do it for them, a local company. I can't remember the names. Like it's on HLTV where you do it.
It's Ace Liga was the Americas, and the Asian one. I forget the Asian one. I feel like I should have
and
it
it's
in my head.
also in Mongolia and in Mexico, two countries that are not known for their Counter-Strike tournaments / esports infrastructure. I'm not saying they can't do it or that it's not there. I'm just saying we've had events, esports events, massive ones, obviously in China, countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, take your pick. Mongolia wasn't one of them. So when you go there and there's power issues or whatever, or server issues or internet issues or technical issues of any sorts, can't say I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Like obviously you would have liked to have tested everything and done the proper contingencies. I don't know what the exact issue was, who's to blame, but I think it's very important to state like how like this actually impacts competitive integrity. Like it impacts fucking results, which should never happen. There was that best of one game with Vertex, right? Rare Random, where the guys like fucking they went for a pocket pick, like for a surprise in the veto. They let the map go through, and like they're going for that shock and awe factor, and they won't know what we're doing. We're gonna beat them, blah 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 blah. And then all of a sudden the game is delayed to the next day, where they can just go back and watch the demos. I mean,
Yeah.
and they can do all the proper preparation, and that's rough. At the very least, at that point, you need to replay the whole thing, right? Like you have to restart, redo the veto, and then we want to do that. They fucked, it's like force majeure, didn't work out, and then you just go for something more solid. The Americas one with all the stuff with the coaches like not being able to talk, man, I wouldn't start the game. I would just say, guys, until I have the technical capabilities to do my job, we're not starting. Like, what is this where a guy is taking his headset off, so a coach talks to a player's headset, or he just talks to one guy and then he talks to everyone else. Like, the problem isn't only that it's impractical, it's kind of adds an extra layer of stress, right? Like adds an extra layer of stress on the coach, on the player who needs to communicate. I don't even want to talk about this stuff where a team gets more time to set up than their opponent. Never should happen. Never should be a thing. So that's the problem. There's also, like on almost every layer, there's a problem. Like the technical stuff, the setup stuff, the referee stuff, the admin stuff, the rule book, like people standing behind the team who are not supposed to be there or are supposed to be there. And I love this from like whenever, it's due to miscommunication or something. It's not a miscommunication, someone fucked up. Like someone didn't read. They said the same thing for the config situation, and when he was supposed to stand in for FaZe at Spring Groups this year, right? But it's just been so many problems. I know the format also is probably influenced a lot by Valve or whatever, but what the fuck are we doing in the Americas region where it's like a Swiss system but 2 losses and you're out and one of them is a best of one? It's like, come on, like surely we can do a different qualification system that makes more sense with the amount of teams and the amount of slots, no?
That one tilted me off the face of the earth because I actually didn't even realize that until
me neither.
Until I got to Mexico and we were like kind of talking about it over dinner and someone brought that up and like none of us had really caught that before we got there. And then it was like, what the fuck? I think my biggest problem with that is just the fact that it's like a built-in disadvantage, like into the format. It's not like there was some kind of a mistake made. That was how it's supposed to be, and it is just built into the system that's constructed. Or because we lost an extra spot in the Legends and Challenger stage due to poor performance from the region at the last major, now the next qualification, our teams only get 2 chances, where over in Europe, you get 3 chances, and then you even get a last chance playoff.
Yeah.
So like some teams actually have 4 chances to qualify from Europe, where North American teams have 2 chances to qualify, or America's teams have 2 chances, and then Asian teams have 3 chances. So it's like this really like, how do we have like a system where it's like built in and designed to kind of give these different disadvantages and advantages to different regions, which is crazy. That one was nuts. That one was really hard. And, but I mean, as opposed to the other issues too. By the way, the company over in Asia is Mesa, Mesa HQ in Mongolia. But I know like, like the issues. I don't know. I have like I guess I kind of have like a weird perspective because like this kind of stuff like shouldn't happen. I know like in Mexico, I know where we were at in Monterrey, like a bunch of the Americas teams that were there have spent a lot of time in Monterrey over the past few years. Like that's where a lot of Brazilian teams have gone and spent like 6 months to a year to like boot camp and play in
Yeah, Godson was there, I think.
Tournaments. Yeah, Godson was there. I think 00 Nation was there.
Even
for a
Casal
while.
was there with Extremum for that NARMR
Yeah.
in 2021.
So the city of Monterrey is apparently making a little bit of a push to kind of be like the gaming hub for Mexico because it's so close to Texas. They can actually play in the Americas tournaments, and it's easier for Brazilian players to travel and spend time there. They don't have to go through the visa complications of the United States. So I think we'll probably see more out of Monterrey, and I would imagine that means, you know, hopefully. I know this is going to sound weird. Hopefully more out of Ace Liga, but when I look at this, I'm like, I don't like it's like the short-term growing pains that maybe not short-term, but it's like the growing pains you have to go through considering the scene was destroyed in the Americas like over COVID. Like there's no operator who understands how to run Counter-Strike. And if we want to get operators back into CS in this region, these are pains we're going to have to go through. And it should obviously never fucking happen at a major. This tournament is too big and too important. I think the last episode, we had the conversation how in some sense you can look at the RMRs as like the second most important event of the year, you know, next to the majors, because it's the qualification to the most important event of the year. So it shouldn't be happening there, but at the same time, it's the only chance at the moment within the scene for these potential operators and companies to get experience running Counter-Strike events. So it shouldn't happen, but it is kind of growing pains that I feel like we have to go through to some extent. And that's where I think the biggest fuck up was, because I know like when we went into like day one, it felt like the entire scene was on fire. Obviously, the Asian RMR starting out the way it did with like an entire day being delayed, and then production issues in Asia and in Mexico. But I think they did a great job of recovering from the production issues. We didn't have too many production problems after the initial day. It's really like the inexperience of the staff around being referees, around being admins for like helping to set up. Like some of the admins didn't have great experience in terms of like fixing driver issues and certain problems that players always have when they're setting up. So yeah, those things shouldn't occur. And I mean, it was a little bit of a shit show, but you know, I think too in this podcast we warned everyone like this is going to be a thing. Like here's the other part of it too. I don't know how this ever could have been any different. Even like, let's say even all the RMRs were going to take place in Europe. Like Blast is still going to have to outsource the Americas and Asian RMR. There's no way they can run all three RMRs from their Copenhagen studios all at the same time. They don't have the staff and the infrastructure. And I mean, ESL doesn't even have the staff and infrastructure to run three RMRs from the same location. ESL was just fortunate during Rio that they have like the DreamHack studio in Stockholm, and they have their own studio that they used for the European one in Malta as well. So,
and then the Asian one was only 4 teams at the time, so it's easy, so
yeah.
it's smaller. Yeah, but I mean, that's not my problem. That's not your problem or the viewers' problem. Like the viewers should get a decent product. Like I like Blast and how they run their show. I think they have a good circuit, but this was extremely disappointing. Like this is just we're just talking about the technical problems. What about the broadcasting itself? The content, like we get nothing. There's no storytelling apart from what the guys can do during a game. I mean, yeah, you were there too in the Americas one, which is, you know, not a whole lot. You have the game and a little bit around it, and also, I mean, you need to go to the toilet, you need to take a fucking break, eat some food. You can't be on 100% of the time. And for me, like I can understand that they're thinking of this is just the qualifier, let's just get through it, and then at the major, you know, it's going to be better, and then at the playoffs it's going to be insane, right? But I feel like there's so many stories, man, with some of these teams, and the teams that finally make it that weren't able to for a couple of majors, or the teams that don't make it that are expected to be there. You know, I tweeted about this Apex team, right? Like you have guys like Stiko and Jacob in there who've been playing for, you know, 7, 8 years, 9 years, 10 even. I mean, in CSGO on top teams and had their ups and downs and were at majors. You know, Jacob was a part of that. Renegades team that was top 4 in Berlin and had some good runs as a team, and he was nowhere to be seen for almost 2 years. Couldn't do anything with Apex. Now he's back. Like this in-game leader kicks on his Macedonian. They brought him into in-game lead. Now they managed to qualify. The BNE story, beating FaZe again in a more, like even though some of those are more familiar, right? Like that's what gets you into really like following and becoming more hardcore as a viewer. Is like you get attracted to the people and the storylines, and there's nothing like we barely, the most we can get is like a quick interview, post game where one of the talent has to run from the casting desk to the area and just do an interview. I mean, you can tell from the amount of people that are RMR and the who's where and who's doing what, that it's not like it was for, let's say, the Rio Major, right, which wasn't perfect in the RMR and whatnot, but I think there's a lot lacking, and I for one hope that Valve watching this will be like, for the next one, if it's the same thing with the RMRs and everything, they'll be like, someone has to do a little bit more than this to get the major, right? That's just that's just my 2 cents. I'm not even talking about mad content and videos and whatnot, just like an analyst desk, so they can also, man, it's hard to keep up with all this shit. Like there's 3 RMRs going on at the same time, multiple streams on one of them. Like it takes me who's, this is my job, like 20 minutes to get up to date with a bunch of different things, like the different the HUD changes. Even I have to wait for a minute to see the KD, or okay, they fixed all of that, thankfully, but just that's the purpose of the desk at something like the RMR. Is that's where you get all your info, right? And they break it down for you and they tell you what you've missed so far, what are the biggest stories so far of the RMR. These guys are out, these guys are at their last life. And that's all there is there. There's not going to be many in-depth analysis, round breakdowns potentially, right? Like just mostly storytelling and narrative building, which I think is crucial. Otherwise, what you're doing, you're just massing games. Like imagine, who did we have? Like, for example, let me see, RMR B, RMR.
I mean, this was essentially like, this was like 5 days of 24 hours of Counter-Strike. I think even Blast was even telling me, one of the Blast was even telling me, they were talking about doing it all in one stream because they found out that like between Asia, Americas, and Europe, they could actually run 24 hours straight of Counter-Strike with the time zones. They were just worried about a match getting delayed or going a little bit long, and then another region having to
imagine
wait
if
to
they did that
match.
Now, seeing as
I know,
yeah,
that would be a disaster.
But ESL had that last time. They had like an F stream. I remember we went to with all the other stuff. But look, you have Into the Breach fucking made it. Who the fuck is Into the Breach? Like, if you're someone who only watches the big tournaments, how did these guys make it? And I don't know, FaZe still isn't through, right? Like, they just won the Grand Slam, or VP, the defending champions. Like, that whole VP situation just in itself, like, that's so wild. Like, that's actually crazy when you think about it. You have, a predominantly UK team made up of UK players is at the major. It's actually happened. And they are in the legend stage. They're in the legend stage.
The meme became a reality.
Like, it's so wild. Like, Fnatic is straight through there. Like, the legends right now are Navi, Fnatic, Into the Breach, and BNE from that group. Someone made it. And from the Americas, it's Furia. And then you have...
Oh, Fury's the only legend.
And then...
Pain, Complexity, and Fluxo.
Yeah, Pain. Oh, yeah, they're in challengers. Okay.
No, those are all challengers. There's only one legend spot in the Americas.
But, so for me, like, I was pretty disappointed with that. Like, I think that kind of sucks.
See,
I understand. Like, it's all, you're saving money, man. Like, a desk costs. Not only like the desk in itself, the people who are going to work it, an extra host, analysts, the equipment you need, like the extra cameras, the extra people who are going to do all of that. The broadcast right now is a desk, 3 headsets, and the panel behind them, and a couple of lights. That's it, right? Way easier to run. Also, less problems in terms of, Mesa or Ace League, like, that have to produce it. Like, less opportunities for them to fuck something up too. Like, it's more simple. So, and that's what you go for. I get it, but I just think it's a little bit underwhelming for a CSGO, for a major of any sorts, especially the last one. But yeah, hopefully once we get to Paris and all of that stuff, we get what we're used to seeing from Blast, a super nice, clean product, and that top-notch production we're used
I mean,
to.
I think we're gonna get that from here on out, right? It's just that pain of having to go through the RMRs that we did. I was actually dying during the Americas RMR because I think one of the interviews they did, and obviously it's like a super inexperienced company, and it was like the classic. It was like going back to like 2015, where like the media day interviews were conducted by someone who like doesn't know Counter-Strike and doesn't understand it altogether. So like the questions were just like super general, like read off camera, off like a cue card, and like it's just like 4 pre-written questions, and none of them build on anything, and none of them are like in any way like valuable to get a real answer. And they were like interviewing Marky because he's like the only Mexican player we have, and they were like, so how do you feel about like being like the greatest Mexican CS player of all time? Which is a kind of a crazy question to begin with.
Yeah, it's so
and he was just like, I don't really care. I don't really think about it at all. And she goes, is there any added pressure on being the greatest Mexican CS player of all time?
Come
and I was just
on,
like,
man.
did you not just hear it? Like, did you not just hear the answer? And he's just like, yeah, I guess. And it was just funny. It was just like the build onto it. So, I mean, the only way for me to get through it, I know, like, because like from working those events, that could be like super frustrating and tilting, and like, so for me, when like I kind of got there and saw how everything was going to go and what kind of situation we were getting into, I was just sort of like, you know what? Don't be angry, and don't put like I like it. Don't try and fix everything.
No, but I understand.
Like,
but you can't. There's nothing you can do. Like the broadcast is what it is. You can only do your job. And I think the talent across, considering what they had to deal with, I think everyone did a tremendous job. Asia guys, especially. I mean,
well, they all got like, from what I heard, I couldn't even confirm this, but they all like got food poisoning as well. Like Kaze had to go to the hospital for food poisoning, but those guys got like a small case of it too, like on arrival. So it was,
and if anything,
that RMR was a real like they were in the trenches.
You have the 3 guys, that you're there with. So I mean, 2 more plus yourself, right? So you're kind of just stick together, rough, tough it out. But yeah,
at least we had tequila.
Well,
mezcal.
that's a pretty good point right there from the source, from the well. So yeah, all of that stuff, man. I don't know, just a bit of a pretty big meh.
Yeah, and too, like it's also like the other thing that was like really tilting at the Americas one was kind of like you touched on like all the issues like coaches, and it was like, okay, day one that happens, we'll give you like, you don't get a pass, but we'll go easy. And then like the issues were still there on day 2, and then you go in day 3 and you're like, all right, surely these are going to be fixed by now. Like surely like the replay is not going to look like it's being broadcast in like 240p.
Oh yeah,
and it still was. And okay, surely the coaches' headsets will still be fixed. I mean, even on the last day in the qualification match for Fluxo, I even sent you guys a picture of all the players had to take their headset off because like Wilton was yelling because his mic wasn't working as a coach, and it was just like, it's crazy that we're now like
he did have a heart attack already, so maybe.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, well, it was funny too watching him because like he was still screaming and yelling like it was no big thing, and like this I don't even know, like 20-year-old girl had to like try and calm him down and tell him not to make like that he wasn't allowed to make the noises, and they had to like bring in reinforcements because he just wouldn't shut the fuck up.
Yeah, but that's also, you can see that the coaches are way more what's the word, animated, right, on some games and RMRs, and not on the others, where we know that Valve's rule is they can't do anything, have to sit. And I said the same thing, man. If I was still coaching, I would put the pressure on the ref. Like I'm there to help my team win, and if I feel like they need energy, I'm gonna shout and do something, and I would look at the ref and decide, how much I can push this, right? And until he says something, I don't care, right? Like it's his job, right. and you feel like maybe that was some other coaches realized that too, and just did whatever they could to help their team win, not in any shady way, but just with nices and fist bumps and all the usual stuff that we're used to seeing. But I also don't know why were they just going along with it? Why didn't anyone say, hey, I mean, can I get proper working equipment for this? We're talking about, especially when you only can lose 2 games. I mean, the margin for error is so minimal.
Yeah.
I understand on the other side of things, you don't want to delay your team and like your players because, you know, like your mic isn't working if they're eager to play. And it's just a weird situation, which you should never be in to begin with. That's the whole point. Like, you should be able to just run a smooth event and just make sure all the gear is working properly.
Yeah. I mean, this was, I mean, it was like actually like, especially like day one, because we started with like, I think like an hour and a half, 2 hours delay maybe. Like even like the teams that were kind of, it was like Fury and Liquid were playing like the early games. And for those guys, it was kind of like it's like the mental test, right? Like you're the kind of the young guy. It's easy. Like if you're one of the like underdog teams, inexperienced teams, it's like easy to kind of stay focused and deal with that delay in my mind. But for like the experienced teams, like who have been used to like the perfectly run events for years, that one is like the real grueling mental task of having to just chill and having to keep things level and keep things calm and not go too far off the rails. But yeah, I mean, there was definitely just talking to players and coaches. Obviously, there was a ton of frustration going around, and I don't know what the conversations were because I understand what you mean. Like, why would you even start the game if like your shit isn't working? And I don't know what the conversations were at all. But I mean, I have to imagine it's like, you know, we need to get this game started now. We have to get this game started now, and I'm sure consequences were started to be flowed. I don't know. I wasn't part of them, but you know, there had to have been something that kind of forced their hand to just kind of accept the situation. I mean, maybe at a certain point they're just like, fuck it. Like the coach's headset is the least of our worries, you know? But yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those things that shouldn't ever happen at a major, and it did. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know what the solution is. Because I really do think if we're going to go down this road and we're going to have this stated goal of making sure that all the regions are represented at the major, then those regions should each host their own RMR. Like those teams should compete in their region.
I don't want to get into this in this episode. I feel like during the player break, we'll have one episode solely around fixing the major circuit, right, and coming up with shit. Because there's so many things that are wrong. And it's like the same things. Every RMR, every major cycle, we come here and we talk about the same shit and the same problems and the same things keep happening. And we just need to come up with a solution, you know, and not keep repeating the same things. Like, no one can tell me, no one can convince me that in the game where the 2-0 teams are Fnatic, Bait, Navi, and FaZe, Navi and FaZe, it's okay that they play each other. I don't care who they played before this and who they beat, right? You look at those two teams and what they are and how well they're playing and the players on those teams and their recent results and achievements, and even a bit longer ones, like not just this year, but maybe last couple of months or last year, whatever you want. Those are the two better teams, and they should not play each other in this round. They should play Fnatic and Bait, right? And you're going to say, yeah, but Bait beat Mouse and they beat VP, and now they have to play Navi or FaZe? Why don't they get to play Fnatic? Yeah, because what did they do outside of qualify for this thing? You know, they didn't earn their way through the rank. And yes, now someone's going to come in and say, yes, but they're not a partner team. They have less opportunities, and that is correct. And that is a problem. And I feel like, as Chad tweeted out yesterday, we don't need these franchises and partner teams anymore because the circuit is smaller and whatever. But that's tough because contracts are in place. But, you know, it is what it is in that sense. And you still have teams like Cloud9 or Heroic before they became one of the partner teams who were able through their ranking to get spots at these tournaments and compete and be one of the best teams in the world. So it's not impossible. It's absolutely more difficult, but it is what it is. So their reward is they don't need to be 3-0, right? Like if they are 2-0 and they lose to Navi or FaZe, well, then they're 2-1. They have 2 more opportunities, actually 3 more, because they're guaranteed at that point to be in the last chance qualifier. And seeing as how they already played Mouse and VP, they can't meet those teams anymore. So they will get at some point some easier opponent, quote unquote, to play and to be able to qualify. And that's it. I mean, you know, you are an underdog team. You just show up there. That's kind of how it has to be. You have to beat some teams that are realistically above you more than one in this sort of a format to be able to get away with it. And they had a 2-2 game against Apex. I mean, that's a perfectly winnable game for Bait. No?
Yeah.
Like they could have qualified for the major with that win. They lost to Into the Breach.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yep.
you look at the teams they beat and the teams they lost to. It's actually wild that they haven't made it yet. And there's some, close games obviously there that they lost and maps and all of that stuff. But that's the point. Like they had their opportunities, right? Just imagine it wasn't Fnatic they played, but now we're FaZe, and then it's Apex and Into the Breach. Yeah, there's your chance to qualify.
Yeah,
You don't need to be 3-0.
You'd probably if you got to tell them that ahead of the tournament too. Like these are the teams you'll play to qualify. They'd probably take that any day of the week.
Yeah,
they'd be like, "Fuck yeah."
Absolutely. So that was my point at the time. Why Navi and FaZe can't play each other, right? And you look at someone like FaZe, and they lost to Navi, and then they lose to Bad News Eagles, which that's a game that they kind of need to win, right? If you're FaZe, it's a best of 3. You need to win that game, but maybe BNE is just their kryptonite. Then the 2-2 game you run against Mouse, right? And again, FaZe should win that game. But I think we can both agree if they play 5 times, Mouse is going to beat them at least once, maybe even twice, right?
Yeah.
Or like 2 times out of 6. Once every 3 games, Mouse wins. And, on that day, Mouse was the better team. Exertion had an insane game, played really, really well.
Was nasty.
Yeah, he's going to be awesome. And it was like, in the end, overtime on Inferno, right? So, as we would love it to be.
Yeah, as we would love it to be. I mean, yeah, dude. Even in the Americas RMR, there was a world in where I was looking at it. I thought Evil Geniuses was going to qualify for the major. I thought they were going to make it.
Yeah, even the Furia game, they were in it like for a good amount of time. They could have gone 2-0 up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they lost that 16-13. They beat Imperial on day 1, and then they played Paqueta in a BO3. And I was like, they win that, and I think we went through like the Buckles site, and I think their like next team that they would have had to beat was like Fluxo, which was nothing special. It was like Fluxo or Bestia,
yeah,
to like qualify for the major. And I was just sat there and I was like, holy shit, if they win today. Like, that's a real shot. But, I mean, again, in classic disappointing form, like, they lose to Paqueta. So here we are. Whereas, the Americas RMR was fucking weird. I mean, you want to know who got screwed by that? The 2 elimination thing was Imperial more than anyone. That was brutal. But, like, it was this, like, weird contrast of, like, teams like Liquid and Furia and Pain coming out on like day 1 and like handling business as the favorites, but like there were some teams in there that you expect to do good, and they all looked, in my opinion, not to be an asshole, but they all looked bad.
Not to be an asshole, but they were all shit.
Like, man, like, 0-0 Nation was one of those teams like you give like a puncher's chance, and they obviously they looked lost. I didn't actually get
MIBR.
Imperial games. MIBR was another one of those teams that just didn't look all that good with Insani. He had a couple good games in there, but they like really never felt like they got it going. Fluxo was a team that like we'd kind of heard like being hyped up with some of the names in their team. Zeus obviously behind it, but even like the other teams at the event were like, these guys have been awesome. The Classic, like they've been really good in scrims. VSM's back in major, like finally allowed to be at a major. Phelps is in that team. Like you got some players to get like interested by it, and they looked bad. So the Americas event was like really, really strange. Even like Liquid, even just losing a map to Nouns was mental.
To Semphis.
and almost getting like straight up knocked. Yeah, like I think even Semphis was surprised. The morning of like the elimination game between them, like I just went to get Starbucks before the broadcast began, and Semphis was like, "Pray for us," like like he was like, "Dude, like like please, like shout out, throw up a prayer for us."
And the third map is Nuke too in that series. So
yep. I know, which I saw that and I was like even scared for Liquid. I was like, oh shit, here we go. And like Inferno was close for a while. Ancient, obviously, they lose in overtime. So they looked sketchy at the end where they started the tournament looking like they weren't going to miss a beat, like they were actually just going to come in ready to go and just handle all their business. So it was like, the funny thing about it was like at the Americas RMR, Furia got first place, technically, whatever first place means, but they got the legend spot.
Yeah.
And Pain got the challenger spot. They were in that playoff run, but Pain probably looked like the more impressive team. Like Pain looked like they were actually fully playing into like their potential and what they're capable of, and Furia looked like they were still kind of like limping, considering where we know they can be at.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, I was gonna say I'm very happy about Pain because they play
I am
a
too.
nice brand of Counter Strike. They're like likable
Yeah,
guys. They're good guys, and to finally, I didn't know if that Pro League thing was just going to be a one-off, a fluke, but then they beat Liquid again in the showdown. Now they take care of business at the RMR. So they're one of the teams I'm looking forward to seeing play. Actually,
dude, Skulls is so sick.
Yeah.
Skulls is incredible. I think he ended the tournament with like a 1.41 rating. I think was what he ended up across the whole run. And again, like the level of competition is obviously not the most impressive, but still, he was shooting heads. Yeah, the only thing Payne is missing at this point, because they've taken some nice scalps, and I think they passed the eye test with flying colors. The only thing I think Payne is missing on their resume at the moment for us to like really consider them like a pretty dangerous squad. Although I mean they're still going to be considered a dangerous squad, but they're missing like a deep tournament run. You know, like all they have at the moment are like the upsets over Liquid, a close game versus Furia. Like I would love to see them at the major. Like I think they have an outside chance of making top 8, but I'd like to see them challenging for it. You know, I'd like to see them. They like
can definitely. I'm not even sure. You know, it's going to be hard for them to make the playoffs too. But they're going to ruin someone else's day. You know, like they will knock out Vitality maybe or someone like that. You know, they'll break someone's heart, and probably won't be able to make a deep run because it's still early days for them. I think maybe down the line, sure, but sort of that dark horse type of a team, not to win the whole thing, but cause a couple of upsets.
It's crazy to think that just like a week ago they lost the showdown finals to Imperial. Yeah. And then Imperial gets knocked out like in day 3 of the RMR, and they make it all the way to the major.
Yeah, it's a complexity game, of course.
Yeah,
they played each other so many times. Like that's in important games too. I mean,
yeah, I know, and I mean at least there's a little bit of payback for complexity. But I mean, you know, complexity didn't look great in this tournament either. So I mean that team is still kind of in like a weird place. There's not a whole lot of teams I think to get. I think Pain is the team you can get like most excited about from the RMRs. Obviously Liquid and Furia will always be there, but they are always going to have that asterisk of which one are we going to get at the major, which kind of, you know, sours any kind of excitement you can really build up for them. So I mean honestly, like Pain seems like the most interesting team out of this region for sure.
Yeah. I'm just looking at some of this other stuff from the RMR. Like we just talked before we went live. Like this last chance qualifier has to be after this group, right? Because we're talking about Rio and all of that stuff. And now, you know, FaZe, who is going to Rio, they have to play the last chance qualifier. Like they'll arrive on the day of the games or something, you know. Like this period now while RMRB is going on must be extremely stressful for them too. I don't know. I imagine they had to go home after their group, and then they'll come back to play the last chance qualifier, right? It has to be there on LAN from the studio. So a couple of intense days of practice. I don't think anyone will be, you know, all the time you're awake, you're probably playing CS.
I have 2 things. First, I'll ask this question. Like, what is it? Because in Rio, for the Rio RMR, we didn't have a last chance qualifier. Is this because the one slot was taken away from the Americas and given over to Europe that we need to have this?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. My second thing was I fucking hate you and Chad.
Why?
Because
what did we do now?
So many times during this podcast have I sat here and been like, our Counter-Strike schedule is still massively fucked. Like it's still insane. Like there's still too much shit going on. And every time I get shouted down by you two, and I get told, oh no, the players and the teams can pick and choose their schedule. They get to go home. And now we're in this situation where there's these RMRs, and then there's this last chance qualifier that FaZe might have to play.
Yeah, but that's the problem because the RMR was supposed to be one thing. Now it's morphed into something completely different. Now, you know, there wasn't supposed to be any last chance qualifier ever. We weren't supposed to have these ridiculous formats, you know, and all this stupid shit going on. Like, it has to stop. Like, we can't. And it all starts. This is the thing. That's why you have to be careful when you make like one change, because down the line, that change can morph into so many things. And you know what the first change was?
Shout out to Ashton Kutcher. What's that?
The first change, yeah, that's a great movie. The first change was like making the major qualifier basically a stage of the major, which is the challenger stage. Like,
Yeah.
so for people who are newer to the game, the major was 16 teams who played against each other from the start. And then we had 8 teams where the playoff teams from the previous major, and the next 8 come through the qualifiers, and there was a LAN qualifier with 16 teams where 8 out of the 16 would join the Legends, and that was your major teams. And those 16 teams were from all regions competing against each other for the spots, if I remember correctly, and I think I do. And that was it. But instead, now that 16 qualifier stage is actually the challenger stage for you, and then the legend stage is where you have another 8 teams waiting for you. But now the problem is those are not the top 8 teams from the previous major, because that was kind of silly to just hold on to a spot because of that, and then the 3 out of the 5 players rule to keep the spot. We weren't getting roster changes because they didn't want to lose the spot at the major and whatnot. But now you can go there through the RMR by winning 2 best-of-1s and a best-of-3. So you had Sprout as a legend team last major. We'll have Into the Breach here, and Fnatic and BNE and some of these teams, right, who will go straight into the top 16. And that also shouldn't be...
I wonder if they'll reset it for Source 2 though, or CS2.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be disregarded. If you're top 16, you skip the open qualifiers too, or the closed ones as well. Like you have a spot at the RMR, which also these days, man, it's not a given for some of these teams. So that's the problem. It was one thing, then the other, then the third, then the fourth, and now it's morphed into something that doesn't honestly make too much sense. Right? And I see that they've added this WAL ranking, the seeding to kind of help things and, be able to, for teams, so their performance matters outside the major and make it maybe easier if you're doing well to get to the major, which I like. But I think it's not enough, and it has to be different. Like, we have to have all the teams at the major play each other, or have the opportunity to play against all the teams that they qualified. That's it. Now we need to decide, is that going to be 16 teams or potentially 32 teams, or just not 24, man? Can we just go back to having 16 teams at the major, right? Let's have maybe 4 of them from the or let's have this ranking, but let's make sure it's strong. And then obviously what weighs the most in the ranking and in the point system is the previous major, but let's say someone like G2 who didn't make the major but had good results coming into this one, okay, they don't get a spot directly, but they get to be in that qualifier at the end, I think that they've earned that. And then there's a lot of open spots. Most of the spots are open from open qualifiers into this qualifier, right? And those have to be played online. And that's just the way it is. And they have to be, maybe a bit earlier best of 3s. We don't do fucking best of 1s.
I would make a counter argument to that, just in the sense that I would say on some level, I don't think it's that like one change that was the issue. I think they probably just there wasn't enough changed to account for that one change, because I think it's actually in a way kind of good, and I think it's important that the major expanded from 16 to 24 teams, just because, money. The extra sticker money that goes to these orgs that would have made it to the qualifier but not to the major. Expanding that to 8 teams that now have the chance to get their sticker in the game, to get the sticker money for the orgs and the players that spend most of their time on like a tier 2 level, and are outside of most of the Blast and Louvre circuit with ESL. Those that's so valuable for those orgs that might not have as many chances to,
I know, man, but that's 8
bring
teams.
income and revenue.
And I agree with you. I want to give more to these smaller orgs and smaller teams, and I love these storylines, but maybe we give them that in a different way, because here's the point. Like, if you make major 16 teams and they all play each other, obviously it's like more prestigious. It's like means even more to make it there, right? Like, there's less spots. It's going to be even more crazy, right?
Yeah.
But because of how good the teams are and how hard it is to make it, well, then that fucking qualifier with 16 teams is a mental tournament in itself, right?
Yeah.
So if you do it properly in a way, you could.
But isn't this just semantics? Because I mean, the challenger stage is already pretty crazy as it is as well. Like the challenger stage is like the best part of Rio.
Yes, but there's a difference between saying something is one tournament and not all teams play each other. Like you know, it's a stage of a tournament where the best teams are waiting for you still on paper, right? Like that's why hey, better call it what it is and make it different, and then that will also make it super cool. Like then you can also, let's say the major is in Paris, right? But if you did it that way, the top 16 teams, that part is in Paris, and I'm sure Blast, for example, let's say Blast in Copenhagen, they could do the qualifier there and not do it in the Royal Arena, but maybe some smaller event, like they could find a way to do it where maybe it would make it more profitable for them too. Like they could sell tickets to that sort of thing, like and create something where it's more fun and better. Now the problem comes a little bit. So if we do that and the major, like obviously they would last less, but you would have 2 tournaments. So it would take probably take a little bit of extra days in the calendar to do it, especially if it's, I don't know, a Chinese team qualifies. Well, they need a new visa for the actual event, and that takes time and all of that stuff. And this shit isn't easy, man. Like there's no easy fix to this circuit. But the thing is, we need to recognize that it's broken, and I think it's broken. That's the thing, and we're just used to it, and we're like putting band-aids on each side, and we're chugging fucking whatever you take, Jason, oxys, some painkillers just to get through it, and then it's done, and someone gets out of like gets wheeled out at the end. It's like you made
and all
it.
of a sudden you've got an epidemic before you even know it.
Yeah, right. But instead we should try to see what the underlying issue is and fix the condition of the patient.
I think the hard part is I'm always like, especially with the major, right? Like I never know like where to place the blame, because I don't know how much influence like TOs can actually have on how Valve want things to be organized and structured and ran and all that. But I mean, I know they have a much more open, direct line of communication. And I'm sure I would want, like, I don't know, like when they pitch a city and they pitch a tournament, they pitch for a major. Can they suggest changes? Like, can they say, hey, we want to get rid of this, this, and this, or we want to do this a little bit different? I don't, if you have to go and like sell a completely new format,
I don't know, man.
Valve,
But I'd try, because selling them on a really good format that you think would be better might be something that gets you the major. I mean, the problem is like that they also, I mean, they decide how the circuit looks like, how many majors there are, all of that stuff. So you can't really do something where, like there's a certain system in place. I'm sure there's some limitations, but then it's a conversation where, the whatever, whether it's a player council or CSPP, I don't care, but them, a couple of TOs and Valve all sit together and come up and say, hey guys, like, come on, let's figure this out together, because I'm sure the TOs are unhappy a little bit because I think they feel like they struggle to maybe make money. I don't know. The players are probably unhappy, but the players are always unhappy about something. So, that's just,
I mean, like,
just
I
a
think
given. But probably, whether it's the best of ones, the lower tier teams will be unhappy by the fact that, how the points are gotten, and the partner teams, and, the higher tier teams will be unhappy with the seeding and this book hold system where you do have Navi and FaZe play each other instead of them playing Fnatic and Bait, right? And probably, there's something that Valve would like to be better too. So I think it has to be one of those things. We need a sit down, Jason, a good old fashioned sit down, Satrialis, get some bologna sandwiches in there, some gabagool. I just watched Downey Brasco last night, so forget about it.
Well, I think there's, what's funny is, this is something that kind of, I think with all the other issues kind of went under the radar. But one of the other things like Blast did with the Americas that I think was, ended up being a really rough idea to make work was like, 'cause I don't know if you saw like the viewership for the Americas RMR at times was horrid. Like just it was awful. Like I think like it was like Flom was usually like the #1 streamer and #1 viewership for it with like 4 or 5K. And part of that too is like we didn't have numbers for like the Blast.tv platform, but I can't imagine it's anything crazy. But also like they created entirely new Twitch channels that had never been used before. So like even when we're like if you like follow all the Blast channels that had already been there, like there's brand new ones out all of a sudden. You don't I don't know how many people use notifications on Twitch. I personally don't. But like you don't get the notification, or you go to that Twitch, you're like, oh, Blast is probably on today. Let me go to the Twitch channel. You just type it in directly and it's not there anymore. So like for the Americas,
I had to go to the HLTV match pages to find the streams. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have this world where like, I get what they're trying to do from a business perspective, right? Like they don't view this product as Blast Premier, which is part of the reason why like the colors on the HUD have changed and the style of the HUD has changed. I saw people obviously when the whole HUD thing was popping off, like why aren't they using like just the one that they have for all their other tournaments, which is perfect. And from their mind, it's a completely different vertical within the company. It's not Blast Premier. They don't want it to have that same branding and that same association with their more like closed off partner circuit. They want this to be, this is the Blast Major. It's a Blast.tv major, is the important thing. So they want that Blast.tv portion of it to have its own vertical, and that's why you're seeing like a different
but you can't fucking
branding.
ram that shit down people's throat and hope they swallow. It's like,
yeah,
sure, you want that and do it to the best of your ability, but at some point it's gonna become a thing that's going to irritate people, and you're going to create animosity towards that brand and that product, because of how aggressively you're trying to push it. Like you need to find some sort of a balance.
Yeah.
I don't like the HUD for one main reason.
That was my next question. I was going to ask you.
I don't see a lot of people. I didn't see many people mention it, or anyone. I don't like it because it hides a lot of the skin of the gun. When it's like that, like if you're watching the stream right now, you can see like the gun, it obscures a lot of, especially while the players are alive on the CT side, a lot of the skin, the weapon or whatever it is, and I dislike that.
Does it bother you because you can't see the skin, or does it bother you because like it's like kind of part of the weapon that like you look at times? Like is it actually like visually important to see that part of the game? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like is it the skin design itself?
Yeah, I think it's more so about the skin design.
Okay.
Right.
Because I don't give a fuck about skin, so that part didn't bother me. But I can understand like if half the gun is covered up, you're like, what the fuck?
Well, yeah, that's also it just feels a little bit unnatural, especially when you compare it to playing the game, man. Like like you wanna make it similar. And it feels, if the bars are on the side, it doesn't obscure as much.
It's less important real estate.
Yeah.
On the sides.
It's much better now than it was on day one with now KD plus money. You can see both of those, which is really important, man, because at one glance, I can see multiple things. Everyone can, right? You see the money, okay, they're equal. You see the kills. Oh, this guy's doing well. This guy not so much.
We didn't have GoTV, I think, on like the first couple games of the first day in the Americas, if I remember correctly. And I was just like, and that was when they hadn't made the change yet. So you could only see money or kill death. Like they hadn't put them both in the HUD. So I was just like, okay, well, I guess I can't really talk about economy or who's doing good for this first map, like, because I don't have that information in front of me in any meaningful
wild.
way.
How do you not have GoTV?
It was one of those things where like it was being set up, but with all the other issues, we were just like, look, it's low priority.
I know, but isn't one of the things with majors is that anyone can watch and stream and do all this stuff?
No, we didn't have the PC. The shit wasn't set up at our desk.
Okay,
GoTV, but like,
okay.
They were like in the act of getting it set up because like we asked for it. Like we were like, this is kind of important for us to have. But when all the tech issues were going down, we were just kind of like, it is important, but like it's low on your priority list. Like take care of the games and take care of the players, and then get to our GoTV, because like we can still manage and you can still, we're experienced enough to like hide the fact that we don't have this information and we can get around it. But yeah, so we got there eventually.
Well, yeah, the most experienced crew was in the Americas RMR, pretty much.
Yeah, well, it was like the way they did it was like there was Scrawny, Launders, and Maui on one stream, and then me, Darth Mike, and Bach on the other stream. So yeah, I would say that. I guess that would be the most experienced. I mean, I don't even know. Actually, the European RMR was funny. I would like tune in and I was like, what are the? I haven't heard these voices before. There was a lot of new
Yeah, I
people,
had the
which was
same
kinda
thing. I
cool.
was like, wait, who's? I recognize Anders here,
Yeah, and Dinko obviously, and Lucy's pretty hard
but
to
people
miss.
sounded a little bit different to me. I don't know. It's like the audio, like even Dinko. I know Dinko, but didn't sound like Dinko. Or Harry and Hugo were the big ones because I just casted with them a lot too,
Yeah.
and was with them, and they sounded a little bit different, but there
I
weren't
think they were on
any
the morning
issues
shift.
with that.
I rarely ever heard Harry and Hugo, so I think they had the earlier
It's
games.
Harry, Hugo, Jackie, Dinko, Hoka, Lucy,
Yeah.
Anders, Cody, Neo, Kai. Is that it? Or
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
That
Might
should be
have
it.
been one more. Okay. Yeah, but that was cool. But yeah, I guess in a way, yeah, we did have one of the more experienced crews. But yeah, it was all fun. It just took a little bit of time to get going. Eventually, the production side of things figured it out. Outside of just like the limited capabilities that you mentioned earlier in terms of like storytelling and in terms of having it like an actual show, it was just very bare bones of like, here's a player graphic, here's the stats, go to break, 5 minutes off, next map starts. Here's the two teams. Here's the action shots. Here's the here's the player to watch, and then back into game.
Yeah.
So I mean, it
But
was
it's also, I
basic.
mean, I'm just looking at it, man. It's going through what did we miss in some of the results and stuff. OG had a great result, being down 0-2, coming back to win 3 games and qualify. They didn't even make it to the RMR at the Antwerp Major.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big accomplishment for them. We mentioned, Into the Breach, how big of a surprise that is. Bad News Eagles, I think we expected them to be at the major, but not maybe this straight to Legends.
And not with another victory over FaZe. Like not. I didn't expect another upset
true.
over FaZe in
But
any
this
way.
is, for example, same thing, man. Like, look at the storyline around Falcons and MBK and Kenny.
I know.
Came into CSGO together, gonna ride it out together. Kenny coming on top of op kills on land. Like, there's none of that. Like, I'm sure the guys mentioned it, obviously, and during the cast, I know it was a talking point, but it's just kind of sad to not be able to sort of give it what it deserves. The reigning major champions not going to be at the next major at all.
Well,
with VP, what a horrible, like very disappointing result. Boomich was back. Failed to qualify.
I kind of, this is one of those areas where I agree
don't give
with
a
you. Well, no, I agree with you, but I give it a pass because it's like again, this goes. I don't want to get it. We had someone in the Twitch chat last week being like, "Oh, is this that time of the episode where they go on like a 20-minute sidetrack on tournament formats?" And I myself hate. I really don't. I'm not a format guy, so like that thing I kind of get like drowned out in. But there is like a thing where even like they already have like 12 to 14 hour days going on in Europe. Like I know like their times for like shuttle in the morning is like 9 or 10 a.m. and their shuttle back to the hotel at night is usually like 11:30.
For whom?
Something for the
Talent?
European one.
Talent?
Yeah,
or
for
who?
talent. Yeah, for talent.
Yeah, man, that's what you get when you hire 3 people.
Yeah, I know, but I'm
per
just
game.
saying. But I'm saying if you start adding if you start saying, okay, we want to have like death segments to go over these storylines, we want to add 4 or 5
Yeah,
minutes.
Jason, I'm
in
saying we
between each
need
game.
10 more people there. That's the point. But 10, not even 10. Less.
I don't even think there's time for a death segment though. I don't even think there's time for it. I don't
course
know.
there
I
is.
I don't know how long their breaks are in
Of course,
between.
what we did at the previous RMR is like we waited I think we waited for the first round of games to be over because you have to wait for all the games to be over to draw the teams so that the
So you
teams
do
can
like
set
one
up. So
long
you do the
death
schedule.
segment?
So there was a really long
Okay,
one.
I gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's fine. And you can even have teams like I can even understand this try casting, and for that it's actually fine. I've enjoyed it with Harry and Hugo at Pro League, right? Like doing sort of kind of live analysis and not commentating shit. And then to have just that one extended death segment, and then when you get to the best of threes, you can go back to duos and right. So you can save some money there with having people do one thing on day 1 and then do their actual job on day 2, 3, whatever it is. But it's just, we already went through that it's a cost thing. They're saving money. That's what we're getting, the bare
I'll tell
bones
you-
experience.
I'll tell you what I did like from the European RMR when I got a chance to tune in was Navi looked good.
Yes.
That made me happy. That made me real fucking happy. NPL looked like he was getting comfortable within the team. That made me happy. I like it when Navi is playing well.
Yeah, MPL was highest rated player in that series against FaZe, and it was wham bam 16-7, 16-11 from Navi, Inferno, and Ancient. Everyone played good. Everyone had their moments. Twist had a really off series that felt wild for FaZe. But yeah, I said, if Navi is starting to figure things out and
Yeah, holy shit. Russ got 17 kills across both maps.
Yeah, Simple is also, he's not on his form that we're used to for like the last 3 years, but he's gotten out of that little slump, it feels like, that he had for a bit.
Yeah.
I think he's been playing a little bit better too, which again, very scary for everyone else. But yeah, now it feels more like Navi is a contender, right? And not just a team that we feel like, based off of their skill and experience and all of that stuff, will make the playoffs, but can't really win the tournament. If they play like they did in that FaZe series, and at the RMR, yeah, they can definitely lift the trophy in Paris. And now it's interesting to see.
Paris feels wide open.
Yeah,
Paris feels
I think
wide the fuck open.
I met Groove actually for two nights before he left. When they were done with all the games and playing and everything, and we talked a bit about this time. And it feels like now there's like actually 5 teams at the top, like that are more close. You have FaZe, G2, Navi, Heroic, and Cloud9. Like those 5 seem to have.
You have one dinner with Groove and you come around on Cloud9?
Hey,
Is that what I'm
I
hearing?
explained my analogy perfectly in the last episode. The girlfriend. This was the get together. The first actual
this is
sit
like,
after
it's
the
good
breakup.
to see you after like 6 months.
Yeah, to talk things
now
through.
I
It's you
remember
look.
what I'm
Oh,
missing.
have you been working out? That whole spiel. But no, it's only with their results and stuff, because they have been playing better, and we'll see what happens now at the RMR. They're playing Monty right now.
Yeah, they're getting beat up a little bit.
The second pistol, if they lose it, that's going to be rough. But Monty, of course, a team that probably no one wanted to play. I know Madden told me coming back from Malta, he was like, we have Monty in the first round, man. I hate it, right? Because they played the most map this year, I feel like, out of any top 30 team. I think someone put that stat out, and they're just so used to everything, running and gunning, right? Like this sort of a little bit of a wild style. That every tier 1 team will tell you the same. They pretty much dislike that. Hard.
Yeah, I think they played like something like 120 some maps in 2 months or something like that. In the first 2 months.
That was sick. They just retook 3v5 second pistol round. That's really important. But
what the fuck? I was way far back. I was like at 9-2 or something in the first half.
Oh yeah, well, go live on YouTube, dude. It ended 9-6. So
I'm on Blast TV like a real champion.
Ah, okay, nice company man. But yeah, that was good also for Navi, and I will have to see some of these other teams. Gamer Legion, man, these teams that are all gonna be there versus some that are not. It's wild.
I didn't get to see a whole lot of Gamer Legion. How'd they look?
You know what this means? This also means like we'll have some wild team in the playoffs too, just by the sheer amount of teams
upsets to get in a challenger. Yeah, I think like Into the Breach, Gamer Legion, and Apex are teams like you probably wouldn't have picked to be in there. Bad News Eagles, probably not that high up in the Legends stage. Yeah, there's going to be some. Well, I think what's cool about it too is like this is going to make the challenger stage a little bit wild. Like this is.
Yeah, FaZe is going to be there if they even make it there. We'll see.
I know that's what's scary. Is like I don't see any. This is always the trap, I guess. But I'm sat here and I'm like, I don't really see a whole lot of danger of them losing to like Falcons or Bait necessarily. Bait, I guess there's some potential, but it also depends on how this RMR B goes. Like, what happens in a world if we have FaZe and G2 in the last chance qualifier? Like that would be so mental.
Yeah, please, let's not have that.
Let's not have that.
Wait, I was just scrolling to see the news. That James said James offered insight into shock swap in pre-elimination log.
Oh, that's that. I don't give a fuck what his justification was. That was the dumbest fucking move. What are you doing?
He says that it was proven that that bringing in Chiron at the start of the year has proven to be a mistake due to differences in roles between him and Norbert. He says, we didn't become stronger because we lost a good anchor in Norbert. For us to play good again in the current roster, we need Chiron to get used to the new roles. So we've lost both an anchor and a rotator.
Yeah, but like I don't know. This whole thing is like stupid. Like I would say even like it's just it's so insane to see this happen. Like I would even go all the way back. Everything around VP, like these roster changes, is so crazy. And also, but like the whole situation was so fucked because like there was even like some like thing coming out. I don't know if VP put it out about like the change was made because his visa was ending in a day. Like
Yeah,
that was like you're just trying to like hide
Vilat
the
said
mistake.
that about the org, that that was the problem. Like his visa was running out, and then they just masked it. Sort of, they blamed it on his inexperience or whatever to cover up their own mistake. Which, I mean, it's not impossible. No one, I don't think it's actually proven yet to this point. But yeah, that whole situation is just, I've never seen that in my life, that you fly in a different guy mid-turn. Like if he was there with the team, I could maybe understand, right? Like you brought him in and you're kind of maybe expecting it's a contingency. No, you put the guy on a fucking plane to fly in.
Here's my other question. Does that mean they, like, because like this confuses me, because like wouldn't that mean they had to have had him?
No,
like,
you have a coach and a sub.
Okay, a coach and a sub now.
Yeah. So Norbert was the sub, Dustin was the coach. But I mean, it's so wild because also for Norbert, I mean, he's not, yeah, sure, they have their own style and probably, he remembers how it was to play with them. But that's why I can maybe buy a little bit that his visa was running out. Like, it's such a drastic change mid-tournament, man. Like, even though things are wrong, like, let's say Chiron is not fitting in and you feel like this is not right. Well, you just have to ride out the tournament, just find a way to win, no matter what, or do your best. And then if you fail, then after that, you change him and say, this is not working. You can't do it mid-tournament.
But also, like, why would James dumpster him like that if it's due to a visa? Like, why would, like the two things just don't make sense when you put them together.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like why would you say that, like, you made a mistake in the roster change, you're missing all these factors? Also, like, I mean, for what it's worth, like statistically, Chiron has like the highest rating on the team. And like I didn't watch the game, so I don't have any like great eye test or insight into like how they played or who was playing well or not. But like, to say that and have him be like your top performing player at the event is like, are you telling me like everyone else kind of sucked because you were missing this one, like this guy was playing too good and you were missing the
sometimes now? It's like, maybe lack of commitment in some situations. I saw some guys like try to offer some sort of analysis. I didn't watch the games like in that much detail when they played.
Also, take it one step further. Fuck VP for telling people not to ask questions in interviews about the roster change. Like if you make a roster change like that mid-tournament, like you better be open to answer those fucking questions. Like you have to be. Like fuck yourselves for like trying to like limit what questions can be asked. That's mental.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I couldn't believe that the person who was interviewing Flit didn't ask him about it. It's like, how can you not do that? So here's the thing. I agree with you 100%. Like, VP can want to do that, but no one needs to respect that. Or from any org. Like, if they come to me and say, hey, can you not ask this question? I say, man, I have to ask this question. The player, it's up to the player whether he wants to answer it or not. Hence the
tell
no
your
comment.
Players to say no comment.
Right,
like,
exactly. You can't come to me. What they can do, they can go to Blast, and then Blast can come to me and say, I don't want to ask it. Like, don't ask it. Then I'll say, I don't want to do the interview. Like, then. Yeah. Because I know I will look like a muppet, like a fool, if I go out there and this one burning question about
it's like
this team.
The only important question about the team right now.
Yes. Actually, the interview can be just that one question. That's the only thing that matters. And then I'm not allowed to ask it. What's the point of doing the interview? It's pointless, right? Especially when he's asking him about preparation and stuff. Like, what preparation, dude? They just flew in a player. And then you can see Flit or Fame, I think it was Fame, was like asking, preparation is more or less the same. It's like, what? Is this like some alternate universe that we're in? It's like, what do you mean the same? You have a different player now. It's so wild. So yeah, that's bullshit. And, you also need to know how to handle it as talent. right? But
Well, that goes down to what you mentioned about. I don't know who gave the interview, but I would like that goes down to like some of the more inexperienced talent who still probably like
yeah, you don't want to
I
step
think
on anyone's toes.
yeah, exactly. You don't want to cause any waves when you're at like potentially for some of these guys this is the biggest event they've casted and
Shit,
worked on in
sorry.
their career. So yeah, it all just got like such a messy situation there. But yeah,
I think it's one of those cases of gross mismanagement of
Yeah.
a roster. Like we talk about Astralis letting the lineup fall apart and whole fucking shit that NIP was doing. Like this falls under that, man. You just won a major. And I was one of the guys who wasn't super critical of the change, right? And I know
Yeah.
there's a lot of guys out there who are now going to be like, oh, we told you so, whatever. But they also thought Norbert was shit. And they thought he overperformed at the major and he's not that good, right? So when the change happened, I was like, well, props to VP for maybe understanding
feel
that,
this way,
that
yeah.
they have an upgrade, right, available. And then they just went for it. Despite the result, they know that they need more. So I like that angle of the side of things, but they may be underestimated, or they definitely underestimated some of the stuff that Norbert brought to the team and probably overestimated what Chiron can bring. And that also sort of experience slash personality slash attitude factor. And you go back to the major, those playoffs games, you see Norbert like in some rounds, he's running in first, man, not giving a fuck, like creating space or even finding entries and opening up rounds for them. Is he the most skilled player on that team? No. Is he the best player on that team? Absolutely not. Did he like do his job well enough to help them in a meaningful way to win the major? Yeah, he definitely did. So what they'll do moving forward, I have no idea because this is just so wild. I mean, just look at what do you do if you're Chiron? They're like, well,
Oh, if I'm Norbert, I ask for like double my salary.
yeah, I
Just
mean,
like-
but do they play with him now? What's the
Yeah, I
what do
don't
you
know.
do? I feel like you have to. After you did
Well,
this
they got time to figure it out at least.
yeah, that's a pretty good point. So I don't know. That was just I went out the night before and then I'm waking up and I'm like, what?
Am I
Is
still
this?
drunk?
That was the night with Grove. So
Okay.
you know.
Yeah, I didn't have strong feelings on the move when it happened after at the end of last year. Outside of like just being surprised that a major champion would make that change, but like one way or the other, I didn't necessarily have a strong feeling about whether it was good or bad. To be honest with you. Oh
Yeah.
well.
Just one of those
Just weird.
things. Just one of those weird things. Another thing to add to this RMR cycle.
Yeah, it's been a. I feel like I've missed so much from this cycle.
Yeah, because you were working
So
and
yeah,
you
and I
were
didn't-
asleep while half of the shit was going on.
Yeah, I was asleep for Asia, and I was asleep for like all but like one, maybe two games of the European one. I was surprised. Mexico's like, the time zone was. I thought it was going to be like 1 hour behind. It was 2 hours behind, so I was all thrown off. But yeah, like I feel
Funny
like
how
so
the world
much.
works.
I know time zones and all that shit. Yeah, what else happened over in Europe during Group A? Anything crazy?
I mean,
I was. I don't know. With me focused on NA, like for me, it was like more about like even nothing like super crazy happened in the Americas one either. It was more just like I said, like the liquid match closeout was really rough and a little bit scary. I'm glad the Mongols made it out of Asia. If we want to touch on Asia a little bit, I know like we probably was hard a little bit for both of us to watch that.
I was
but
keeping an
we
eye a
caught
little
few
bit, mostly
games.
on the results and what was going on. So Tai Lu, unfortunately, a little bit disappointing with Letney because he was their coach. So I was like paying attention to whether they'll be able to make it. Greyhound getting in.
Yeah,
Same
that was
teams.
good. And yeah, I know it sucks Chad's not here, but he'd be hyped about that one because I know he's just excited to have like Greyhound get more experience outside of Australia. So anytime those teams can leave that part of the world and get into Europe for some time is good.
And the Mongols too, man. Like there was a lot of changes eventually being made.
The Mongols organization came back into the world.
Yeah, let's put
Hell
it that
yeah.
way.
I got my jacket.
Yeah,
My jacket's
your
back in
jacket
style.
is. Yeah. I know that's the most important
Exactly.
part about all of this.
Yeah. NKT unveiled a new lineup. For what that's worth, Bentet's back in
Oh
action.
yeah, man! Come on, Jason. Like you're going way deep down. No, but one of the things is look at the. You know what's an interesting topic?
Sure.
This Twisted Minds team from the Asia RMR, right? That's the Loba team, and Doc and all of that. Did you catch that at all? So
I saw the headlines,
what they
but
did,
I wasn't
they have
like...
3 Syrian guys, right? 3 guys that are from Syria. They have Doc is. Well, he plays under the Netherlands flag, and Loba is Montenegrin. But because they have 3 Syrian guys, they can play in the Middle Eastern qualifier for the Asia RMR. So that's how they got a spot at the Asia RMR. They went to Abu Dhabi or I don't know where, and then played from there. Yeah, it's the Middle East close qualifier. And there was actually 2 spots there, and one of them is Invictus International. That was another team. That's the one with Davkost, Face Crack, Mini, Mestel, and Mori or More. Right? So that's like so wild. Like that's a little bit of a sort of way you can play the
Game
system.
the system a little bit.
Yeah, game the system a little bit in that sense, where Loba doesn't care about competing. Like he's just about content, right? And he plays FPL and all of that. Like, so to have them be in the lower bracket final where they could have won the first map against Rare Adam, they won two series there. They beat Eruption and they beat Vertex, like the Aussies. I don't know how Chad would feel about that one. Probably not too happy. And Eruption is another Mongolian team, but that's so crazy to me, man. Like,
yeah. Well, we've known that was kind of possible for a while. Like, I think that conversation's been had, but I don't think everyone's ever seen it like really implemented to this effect.
Mean, imagine. I think I don't know where Israel counts in the RMR space, right? Because some of these teams from the Middle East close qualifiers, they don't have like 3 Israeli players. They count because the Invictus International has 2 Russians, 2 Israeli, and a Lebanese player, right? So obviously Russians are not from the Middle East. So imagine like a team with. You could make. We were obviously talking about a sick Israeli national team, right? But you would have. I mean, I don't want to say a free slot at the major every time, but dude, if it's just the Asia and you have to beat like Greyhound or Mongols, yeah, those are like decent teams. But if you're, let's say, if you're Maus or even fucking Vitality, if you don't care about France or whatever anymore, you get 2 more Israeli players on that team. Yeah, see ya. You're just gonna play the Middle East RMR every time. Like the qualifier, then go to the Asia RMR and qualify that way.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That is interesting that you could pull it off. The Israelis like sneakily just like out of nowhere popped off with like a bunch of good players.
Yeah, man. I mean, Exertion obviously had that great series against FaZe. He had good series before that, but for me it was just because I was critical of the change at the timing of the change when Maus did it, because if you remember they played the RMR qualifiers with Bimas because he was their player, and then right after that they swapped him out for Exertion and started playing tournaments with Exertion, right? Because it would be risky to change a player before the whatever. But then I saw.
Well, that also screws Bimas's chances of playing for someone else. Like, that's the big thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then at Pro League, you could see with Exertion very early on. You could just see with players how they react in some situations. Like when you could see that he understands the way to play the game, right? And he understands what it means to always go for the plays or go for the moves that make the most sense for your team to win the round. And that's it, right? The thing is, in CS, sometimes that means being aggressive and keep fighting, in a round or whatever. Sometimes it just means stay alive, don't die. Sometimes it means, shoulder pick, try to find information, support a teammate, or ask for support, right? It can mean a lot of different things. Another guy who did it really well, for example, during the G2 tournament wins is JK Aski. He was really, really good at always playing like that. So when you see a young player have that, it's usually a good sign, right? Because their mechanics tend to be good already and can get better. So you have the two combined. You got most of a really good player in that. What's left is just the maybe psychological, mental part, whether he's a person that chokes or how is he going to play when it comes to the big stage games, and what's he like as a teammate, and in all the things leading up to games, which also all seem to be fine with him. So yeah, I think Mouse definitely has a good replacement for Robs, which just feels so ridiculous to say that they've nailed it so quickly, so easily,
Well, I mean, that's been on like the rise for a while now within CS, is like, going to young players. Like obviously Counter-Strike is, I think all esports are like this in general at the moment, with like a lack of scouting and sometimes lack of like deep player bases and various games. But like, especially in certain regions like North America, where you do kind of always tend to go towards like the proven LAN players, even if like the ceiling isn't as high, because you just want the reliable, you want something proven. And it feels like in Europe, like a lot of teams that have been on the rise recently have taken some risks on some younger players, and younger players are delivering now like much quicker than they used to, and teams are better at acclimating them. So I think like these young players that you can take risk on, like obviously Mouse has done a really good job of finding them that pay off. And that obviously goes to a lot of the credit too that like Cyclone got, towards last year, with the way that Mouse has kind of had some young players develop and step up, and continuing to deliver. So I mean, it's nice watching teams in Europe be able to have those not seamless, but like relatively painless transitions to like younger players and younger rosters and younger stars, where in the past that would have never ever happened.
Yeah, I like that, because it's also, teams like Ants, we talked about it last episode or whatever, teams that do more with less and manage to be competitive and find the good pieces. But I think,
and it's also, I think last episode I even criticized Liquid for it as well, where I mean all America's teams in general, North America at least, like, there's only so long you're going to stay at the top if you can't bring in and develop new talent and find ways to keep them as impactful as they were on the teams when you picked them up. And that's something that Liquid's obviously struggled with Grim previously. Even OC at times is not as impactful as we know he can be, and we've seen him be on some of his previous teams when he has a little bit more responsibility and a little bit more roles and freedom. But yeah, like young stars in NA tend to have a really tough time when they get that chance to kind of step up to the next level. For whatever reason, and just that inability to develop those next generation of players is rough in the short term, and it's obviously going to have really rough consequences for the region in general in the long term as well.
It's fine; they'll all come back.
CS2.
Well, with CS2, but yeah, maybe we can pivot a little bit to RMRB, basically, as some of the games have happened, and see who do you think will, in the end, be able to make it out of this group.
Okay, so it's the same format as the previous one. So there's what, three or four legend spots?
There's one spot less than group A.
One less legend spot or one less challenge? Oh, I guess we don't have to worry about that. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's seven total spots to give out in RMRB.
Yes, and then there's one in the last
chance qualifier. Yeah. I would say I mean,
one less legend spot. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's 8.
I would say like without even discriminating between legends and challengers, I would say like I would have kind of like 3. Oh, this is gonna suck to say. I would say 3 locks to get through RMRB, and that'd be Cloud9, Heroic, and G2. And I'm saying that obviously
as Cloud9 is losing to Monty.
I know,
in the 1-0 bracket, but that's fair of you, Jason. You see that they're going to be in the 1-1 bracket, and you're still picking them.
I mean, yeah, I'm trying to do this in like a sense of like this is what I would have said if the tournament hadn't began yet.
Yeah.
But I would still say overwhelmingly, even if Cloud9 end up losing this, and even though G2's down 0-1, I would still have all the confidence in the world that those two teams are going to go through. And Heroic obviously not having an issue so far. They're 1-0. Man. This gets weird. I want to see Spirit go through. I think that team is good for one of the spots that's going to be happening. I would like to see Fours. I don't know.
I don't think Spirit will make it. Just saying.
You don't think Spirit's going to make it?
I think something's rotten in Spirit. Something's not quite working out. Like they've had multiple disappointing losses from the start of this year and underwhelming results. Like obviously you expect the team to get better over time the longer they're together, and they seem to be regressing. I'm not sure what the reason for that is. Obviously today's results as well isn't great. They already lost to Aurora, and I understand domestic matchups and whatnot, but you can't really use that constantly as an excuse, and that's after being up 12-5 as T on Ancient, right? And you lose 16-13. Like that's just not a good way to lose too, So I don't think Spirit is making it.
Okay. I still would have that team. I like Patsy a lot. I like watching that team a lot, and I feel like I don't know. I
like them too, man. They're in Belgrade now, but something's off, right? That's just it.
Sure.
I can't really pinpoint what yet. It's probably something that you can't really even know from the outside. You can't tell.
My problem is there's like some of the teams in here like your Monty, who's looking good right now, but outside of this game I haven't really watched them play a whole lot. Same with like Aurora, same with 9 and 500. But like I guess the bigger thing would be like if you would go into this and say 7 spots, like the favorite teams that you'd put through: Cloud9, Heroic, NIP, Vitality, G2, Big, Ents are probably the teams you'd kind of go with.
I mean,
like I would say like Big, Ents, and NIP are probably the biggest susceptible to upsets and dropping out at the moment.
I'll tell you this as well. So Heroic was down 14-11 on T side Mirage to Aurora in the 1-0 game. And now it's 15-14 for Heroic, and Yapi just got headshotted by a scout, of course.
Sick.
And now Shush is in a 1v3, so this looks like it's going to overtime. They know where he is, unless he has a wild round. Shush. Oh my God, he's doing it. Jason, he's doing it. He's in 1v1. He knows where the last guy is.
Oh, beautiful.
I think he's going to win it. Like, he has positional advantage now.
Bombs down.
Kenshi doesn't have a kit.
Oh, it's all gone wrong.
Wow, man. That's going to be wild if Shush wins this.
It's over. He doesn't have a kit. It's done.
Yeah, he's done it. That's a mental round. That's sick. But that's the thing, man. Heroic doesn't get upset, or very, very rarely. Like, it's rough against any team. You're down 14-11 on T-side Mirage, and they just win 5 rounds in a row. Like, that's something that FaZe has been missing in some of these games. That's something that G2 couldn't do today in their opener, right? Like, and sure, Heroic's ceiling is lower, but their floor is higher too, it feels like, and obviously a big part of that, I feel like, is Katie and his leadership, and just
his say the same thing.
His demeanor, right? Like, he's sort of, he doesn't let those thoughts start creeping into his players, where they start choking up and not going for their plays and their moves, right? And
Cadian's the guy who probably treated this game as if it was a grand final.
Yeah.
Like, he probably, like, the entire game, he was probably calming and hyping his teammates up. And obviously we know the pregame speeches. He was probably treating this and having his teammates look at this as if it was a grand final game. Which is awesome, because I think that's a quality that so many teams and so many players miss, especially the ones that are way more susceptible to upsets. But still too close for comfort. But I mean, look, just this is one of those tournaments where it's let's get the job done. Like it doesn't matter if it's close, just qualify, just get the job. And I love that hearing from Mezzi when Fnatic qualified, because they did have a ridiculously
Easy road, yeah.
Yeah,
They didn't play a team
I mean,
in the top
it wasn't
30.
easy. It wasn't easy,
was
but
easy.
their opponents were easy. Well, I mean, look, it was like a double overtime win over Viperio.
Okay, yeah, I
It's
get
not.
what you're saying.
It wasn't
now.
actually easy, but like if you give those 3 teams to them, they take that. Like they're laughing all the way to the fucking bank.
Yes, and they don't give a fuck about it, as they shouldn't. Why would
Yeah,
they
they shouldn't.
care?
And that's
play
why I
whoever
liked
the format gives them to play. I mean, they're not gonna go and say,
Yep.
"Hey, can we play phase instead?"
And that's why I loved it when Mezzi was just like, "Yeah, I don't give a fuck about the route that we took to get here. We're legends in the major." And it's like, "Yep, that's exactly the mindset you should have."
Yeah.
The rest of the shit is all topics of conversation for the peanut gallery.
Yes, but it's also, I mean, come on, Jason. Deep down, you do know. Like, I mean, I don't know. I always felt that. Yeah, of course, at the moment you want to win and you want to win a tournament and everything, but you're not a fool either. You understand that just because you're a top 16 team at the major, like the way you got there matters, right? Like it's different whether they're just qualified there and now they don't win a game and they're out, compared to someone who comes through the challenger stage and beats a really good team and then makes it into legends and then also gets knocked out, right? So yeah, at the moment, of course, right after winning, you don't care about it. But are things great in the Fnatic camp? No, I rate them lower now
for sure.
than I did coming into the Rio major. So
Yeah.
that's not a good thing, obviously. But yeah, who else here? I think Big makes it. Big is just a team that fucking always makes the major. Like, you know, you need to over the years and over time, you just need to sort of respect that in a way, right? Like they just always find a way to be there, even with, you know, even in Rio, like at the RMR with all the roster issues and standing and whatnot, they still got it done, still qualified, which is not easy. So yeah.
Well, and also with Big, like on a positive trajectory as well. Like Hyped looks good. It doesn't look like he's dropped off a whole lot from Pro League. We really liked watching him there. I think like the step up and a little bit more consistency and a little bit more big games out of Keto and Faven is really nice for them. So it seems like they have some things headed in the right direction. And then you add into that you know, like this is a team that's always going to come prepared, always going to come with some tricks up their sleeve. They just have so many tools and so many ways to win that yeah, they're pretty reliable.
I'll tell you who I have making it, man. I have Heroic.
Vitality's making it.
I have Heroic. I have Cloud9. I have Monty. I have Vitality. I have Big. I have G2. Okay. That's already 7, I think. Heroic, Cloud9, Monty.
That's 6, isn't it?
Big, Vitality, G2. No, that's 6.
No, that's 7.
Oh
no,
kidding.
I think I counted NIP. 1, 2,
yeah, you
3,
counted
4,
NIP. Yes.
5, 6. Yeah, you have 6 right now.
6. That's with G2 or without G2?
That's with G2.
With G2, 6, and now it's fucking Ants. I want to say, man, Ants and 4s, and that's my 7 and 8. And then the problem is Ants 4s play each other in the 0-1 bracket.
Ooh.
So I have Ants there. So I'm not 4s, I'm torn on 4s. Maybe it can be between 4s and Spirit, because Spirit is still, I think, decent. Or maybe 9. They've had some good results recently. Astralis could make a run. Outside looking in, I think they need a little bit luck in some of the draws. And yeah, that's pretty much it, man. I think, you know, Monty, not only because they're 2-0, I probably wouldn't have... I think they would have been like my 8th team if they weren't 2-0 already. Because I do like teams who play a lot of games, man. You know, I think that matters a lot in a tournament like this. It gives them a lot of confidence because they've had a lot of reps on all the maps in different scenarios. Like, never underestimate, you know, what's the best way to say this? In a sense of, you know when you're nervous, you become nervous when you do things you haven't done before for the first time in like a high pressure situation. If you are doing like if it's 14-14 and I make a call and it's a round that we've done 50 times in the last 3 months, you know, like people, they won't feel as nervous. Like they know what they're doing. Like they've faced like different things happened to them while doing this one call, right? And they know what the adjustments are, and you know, then you're not feeling nervous. So that consistency comes from preparation, right? And sure, they didn't have as much time to practice, but they've just played so many damn games that's where they have that sense of familiarity. Really. So, yeah, I think That's probably it for me. That should have been way more difficult, it feels like, but I don't know.
I don't.
It seems kind of clear
There's
cut.
Yeah,
Now,
but I think we've said that so many times with the RMRs. I feel like there's always like one hiccup, like one team that makes it that shouldn't, or one team that shouldn't make it that, or like one team that should make it that doesn't. Like, you know, every RMR has those kinds of upsets these days. We saw it. Obviously, we saw it in Group A. I would imagine there's going to be at least one of those big names that we feel like is like a 75, 80% chance of making it through that gets like brought down to the last chance bracket. I don't know, and I guess the question is just who's it going to be. And I mean, I think it'd be cool. I don't want it to be like G2, Heroic, or Cloud9, but it would, or even Vitality to some extent. But I wouldn't mind seeing like a Big or an ENT or a Spirit. Like, so I would love it if that last chance bracket. I mean, I hate that we have it in general, but now that we have it, I would like to see a team that can push FaZe to the limit.
Bro.
I would like to see a team that has a chance of beating FaZe. Like, throw an ENT in there and see, like, let's really fucking test it. Let's make that an exciting last chance game.
I mean, I think we've seen that teams can test FaZe that don't have to be super high. I mean,
Yeah,
or maybe just
I guess,
be
but
any-
like the odds of like a 500. Again, I shouldn't say that because I don't really know. But like, I don't expect Eternal Fire to go down there and really challenge FaZe in any meaningful way. Like, iNation's not going to go down there
No,
and
of
bring
course
FaZe to the
not.
limit. Like, I would give me.
well,
a
on
team that
paper,
can
man,
actually bring them to
none
three.
of these teams should. They just won the
Yeah,
Intel
that's
Grand
true.
Slam. Like, there's 4 teams that should be able to do that: Navi, Cloud9, Heroic, and G2. Those are the teams we named, right?
Yeah,
And Navi was one of them that they lost to, and the other 2 are Mouse and BNE, which are
Sure.
a little bit strange, but obviously not the first time it happened for in either case. So yeah, I think it's just, man, as soon as you lose one of the best of ones, it becomes so weird in a sense, because okay, let's say G2 will beat iNation, right? And they will be 1-1. But then in the 1-1 bracket, I don't know, can they run into Cloud9? Because G2 is the number 9 seed. You know, like that's the thing coming into this fucking tournament. The number 1 ranked team in the world is ranked number 9 because they didn't make it to the tournament that was 6 months ago or 8 months ago now. At this point was when the fucking RMR fuck up happened. So fucking stupid. It's, you know, and it's not because I like G2 and my friends are in on it. It just doesn't make sense. And look what, and everyone is going to say FaZe was 0-3, you know, at the major. It happened with FaZe in Rio that the winner of the major made it out 0-3. Yeah, but who did they play? The first 2 games. Cloud9 and Vitality, you know. And sure, they should have never lost to BNE, but did it really make sense for that to be the matchup? And then in the 1-0 game, Cloud9 played Navi. It's like, the seedings are so fucked. I think in the end, when we do discuss this, at some point, the 3 of us, we will come to the conclusions that one of the best ways for teams to seed each other is the Katowice 2019 system. Because that, in the end, will be the most fair because teams themselves are doing it. There's a mathematical whatever thing for the outliers. If some
teams try and,
idiots
like,
decide
lower
to
a
come
seed.
in, which I don't understand how you would do in a major like that, you're fucking around with the seeding and you go in and you put whatever FaZe as the second worst team and you put Viperio as the highest rated team. You know, those are just null and void. Those really, you don't even count them into the seeding, but yeah, I think it will come down to that because that's where it all starts. And when that's fucked, you try to fix it with this bookhold shit. I feel like it's making it worse.
I hate the bookholes part of it.
Like, that's even worse. You don't even play out all. I don't know, man. It's so.
Yeah, it's messy. It's very, very messy. Speaking of messy, Cloud9 got bodied now by Monty. It's over.
Yeah. Saw that.
16-9.
Didn't see that when I said Monty was going to go through, but.
Bro, Exile had a fucking stinker. I mean, Nafany had a stinker, but Exile.
Yeah, you're used to one of the two having a stinker, not so much for the other guy.
Yeah. God damn.
NIP Vitality, that's low key, you know. I think NIP, it's always the same thing. They suck so much, you lose all expectations for them, and then all of a sudden they show up and they start showing you a little bit of something.
I just saw like a headline about NIP that I was looking for to bring it up, but I can't find it.
It was Alexi B. It feels like
Yeah, it feels like nobody has faith in us or nobody believes in us or
yeah,
something like that. Is
yeah,
that
we
on
don't.
HLTV?
Yeah, I don't. I mean,
I didn't read it, so I was like, I was curious about like his logic. You know, like why does that surprise you in any way?
but you know what
Although
feels like a
I
little
will
bit
say,
of a,
at least in their first game, if you want to have a reason to be positive about NIP, it was against Eternal Fire. Like the competition's
No.
gonna get harder, but it was good to see Config finally have a game in this fucking jersey. Like
Yeah, it's-
like that. Nice.
listen, it's fine to be positive about this team. You should be that, but give me a reason to. Why should I be excited about this team, Jason? What's
know.
exciting about NIP?
Nothing really.
That's the problem.
I know.
Absolutely nothing
Head
is
trick,
exciting.
I guess, might be like the one thing, and even that's like
No,
I
he's
don't
not.
even know. I noticed Alexi waited until he dropped 28 kills to give that quote as well.
Yeah, as you would.
He
But
was like, "All right, I had a good game. Let me hit this line."
yeah, man, it's just sure it's a bunch of guys in there playing Counter-Strike. I don't know. it's strange, right? Then you have someone like Broland with 7 kills and Alexi with 28. Like, how does that happen? What happened to Broland? He was so sick.
I think that's part of the reason why like it's hard to get excited about them is because it feels like it feels like the makeup of the team is like
It's so strange.
is not the way it should be. Like like the people that you expect to be the star players never have the pop off games, and when you see them have good wins, it's usually like it doesn't feel like it's the star players like giving you that. It feels like it's like the role play. Like Alexi shouldn't be having 28 kills in this team. Brolin shouldn't be having 7 kills in this team. Like, you know, Config having 28 kills is not unreasonable because it's Config, but like this is the first time it's happened. Otherwise, his time in NIP has been gross. It's mostly Reds.
And you know,
That's not true. It's not mostly Reds. But
Broland is only 20 years old still, which is
yeah, I do forget how young he is.
yeah, but his rating this year is 104. 4 years ago, when he was 16 playing for Fnatic, it was 112. You know, with 118 impact, like it was pretty fucking good back then. So, and he was playing with Crims, Flusher, JW, and Golden.
I think part of the reason why, like, not anything to do with Counter-Strike related, but like, you know, it felt like Hampus like really kind of took over this team as like their personality, and this team now has no personality. Like, there's nothing to really get excited about, even from
they
like a
don't
fan
have an
perspective.
identity. It feels like it's pretty strange,
Sweet, man.
You know, and we'll see. Maybe they start playing pretty good and. Then that's
I
exciting.
mean, I mean, like, I don't know. I would be curious, like, what he's kind of like attacking with that kind of a interview answer. And again, I haven't read the interview, so I don't want to get too deep into it. But like, I don't really see anyone like bashing NIP as being shit. Just like nobody really expects a whole lot from them because they haven't shown us a whole. Like, they haven't.
Yeah. With that, I was just going to. Sorry, I thought you were gonna.
No, it's good.
Finish your sentence, but
No.
Which is exactly where you want to be as a team. We saw what happened with EG, who had too much spotlight on them. Like you do want no one to expect anything of you, and people to underestimate you, and then you show up and you're actually, you know, you prepare really well for the tournament. The players are feeling it, and then you just take it by storm and catch everyone off guard. That's the perfect spot to be in.
Yeah, they got 17th to 20th at Pro League.
Yeah, they didn't make the playoffs.
And then they got 13th to 16th at Katowice. Like, what are we supposed to be excited about? You got 3rd, 4th at the European Showdown. I don't know why he like seems to be insulted by something. You know, like where's the track record of like excitement that we should have for this team? Like, I think we have them pegged pretty fairly.
You know, you always have people like from these fringe teams that they're surprised about
Feel like
things.
they're not getting the credit they
Kakafu
deserve.
when he tweeted at me during prayer, like the narrative about our team is wrong. It's like, man, come on, like just no one cares. just keep playing and do good, and you know, then people will notice.
Yeah,
No, you know,
like,
you know
stop
what's
worrying
the
about
quote?
what people are talking
What's the
about.
quote? No one cares. Work harder. You know, no one gives a shit. Work harder, right?
Yeah.
Like, sure, for them it's the most important thing in the world. Not for me or for people watching games or stuff, right? Like, unless you're directly involved with the team, you don't care too much about them.
Speaking of taking shots, did you see that Simple interview as well?
Yeah, I saw it. Obviously, when I saw the title, it's like, wait, what? And then you go in and you see it's like something a little bit different.
Yeah. No, it's a super clickbaity title, and it fucking worked because that bad boy was the top of Reddit all day yesterday.
Yeah, because of course, when you do end up saying something like that, you have a lot of people who feel the same who are watching, right? Because when you're saying bad things about their team, they feel like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But I mean, it's fair to an extent, really. The problem is when you say it like that, that's a pretty wide group of people you're talking about, you know.
Yeah.
So and
Pretty
that,
broad strokes.
and that is true for some of the talent. I mean, and that's fine for some of the talent. You know, it's not. You do need, as a play-by-play caster, you need to have a good enough understanding of the game, but you're not there to provide deep, insightful analysis. That's the color commentator is there to do that during the cast, and then you have analysts on top of that who are sort of, and I think that's, I can understand where he's getting at. For example, something that's hard to do from the desk and just doesn't really fit either to try and do it is to look at something that's very, very micro, like a mechanical moment, and kind of break it down or talk about it, right? Because it might be important, and sometimes it fits. Like when Twist did the thing about the monster setup, and it's bad, the angle is bad, and it was an important round, and they lost it, right? Which is like due to micro things happening.
Yeah.
But most of the time, you're there at the desk to talk about the big picture, right? And the narrative of the game and how did it flow, and what happened and so forth. And in that context, you know, that one round where this player was, you know, fucked up a flash or didn't strafe properly, didn't shoulder peek properly, and that's what he died, and the round fell apart. It's like, yeah, I can see it. Or, you know, sometimes you don't catch it, you don't see it. Sometimes fucking observer doesn't show it, you know, and you don't know exactly what happened. But I think for that part, you know, maybe it feels like some players are getting criticism where it's not as warranted but we also, you know, I can only go off of what I've seen during the game during that time, right? Live, and then analyze it pretty much live after that. I can't go onto the server, you know, go into the demo and spend an hour analyzing every little thing and then going, well, this is why it happened. It's just sort of first impressions. And I think it's more so the color commentators during the game, because you're seeing it live on your screen like that. You're paying attention to every, you know, single thing as it unfolds. Then you can be like, oh, well, actually, he, you know, missed the flash. Like, you know, this guy made the correct play, but his teammate made the mistake. That's why he was made to look a fool, and, you know.
Well, also, like, I mean, I didn't take any insult out of this at all from his quote, but like, I just thought it was funny reading it, because like his entire justification for saying it is like, it's all about understanding how a person thinks and makes a decision when you can outplay your opponent using your mind. And it's like, well, great, I can't cast your thought process. Like, I don't know. I can't cast like the fucking 10 years of your FPL experience of playing against these guys to say, oh, Simple here knows this guy likes to stick to it. You know, it's just like, it's just kind of one of those criticisms. It's like, yep, it's there, but you can't really do anything with it.
If anything, I think it's also like the
important to say,
do a good job of giving that leeway in the casting. Oh, this is probably like anti-strat or this or that. Like they
or the amount of times we say like, oh, this player, like this might have been this could have been a mistake, but also he could have been, you know,
they missed the smokes on purpose, and then we just hear it from Furia. They actually just missed the smokes.
Missed the smoke. But I think it's also important too. Like, I don't, you know, people might not know this. I don't really know. We obviously can't know. As you said, it's a wide group of people. I don't know if he's targeting that at someone specific, but all the talent that I know all have a good relationship with Simple, to the point where like we hang out and talk and have drinks and everything with them, and have little chats and talk about CS with them. So that's not to like provide some kind of a defense. That's just to say like we have that kind of a
we know he hates us.
Yeah. Yeah, we already know. We didn't need the headline. Didn't even need it.
All right, Jason,
okay.
how are we looking? where we're at.
We're about an hour and a half, hour
Close.
and 45 minutes deep. We can grind this one down. What do we have coming up the rest of the day on B? What's the schedule for the rest?
Vitality and IP playing right now. Just started pistol round.
Okay. Who do you have in that one? You got Vitality?
Yeah, I have Vitality,
Vitality.
also because I see it's Vertigo and they've messed up their Vertigo against Ants so much at Pro League. Like, and Apex was one of the big reasons for it, that I feel like it won't happen. And they already played it against Astralis today, so that's always a nice thing, you know, when you play the map and you get to play it again. It's really familiar, right? So Zyvo got a 4K in the pistol round. This game is over.
Yeah, we take that with dualies. Vitality, Big Nip.
Yeah,
Big is gonna win that.
Big 9. Yeah, that's gonna be tight. I don't know. They've started as well. It's on Mirage. Big wins pistol. Lose the second round, of course. Third
9.
round,
I like I said, I haven't really seen 9 play a whole lot, but I imagine that's one of those teams that just like. I mean, they don't do anything crazy, but they can shoot really fucking hard. And like, I got some individuals who will make some plays and are going to be fearless.
Kyler has played pretty good against G2. He's sort of that point man, you know, a guy who can have a lot of impact. And later on, we have Ants Force. That's gonna be
that's a banger.
Spirit.
I think
500.
I hope Spirit wins that. I like Spirit.
That's a tough game for them too, man.
G2 iNation should be G2.
Yeah, G2 should take care of that.
And then I think Eternal Fire Astralis could be cool. I mean, I don't even know who'd go into that as favorites. I imagine most people would say Astralis, but I think Eternal Fire takes that.
I'm not so sure. Eternal Fire had their own issues at Pro League.
Yeah, I don't have any great faith or any great love or any great like. I don't look at Eternal Fire and think that's some kind of a crazy team, but I feel like stylistically that could be a tough match for Astralis.
Yeah, could be. I guess we'll just have to wait. A lot of these, you know, after these games, we'll know a lot more about these teams. Astralis played a 16-14 game against Vitality, you know, so was that them just missing the mark by a little bit, or what was going on? We'll see. But yeah, I think tomorrow.
I think we've come to the end.
I think we've come to the end, yes, because I'm thinking about, I'm going to give a prediction here maybe, but by the time we edit this and publish it, the games will be done already.
I know,
so.
that's why I wanted to go through the schedule. I want to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's fine, Jason. I'm here for whatever.
All right, well, we're gonna get out of here. We're gonna pay like a
just like that other
Chad.
podcast. Chad is the one who keeps it all together. So sorry about this one, guys. We're hoping he'll be back for the next one.
I think we did a great job. I don't know what you're going.
And I'm just messing about.
Yeah, goddamn right.
All right. Peace.
GG's.